Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today's video we're going to be taking a look at some electronic devices for either off-grid living or off-grid recreational activities. So let's get right into it. Okay, so getting started, as you can see I have a ton of options for off-grid power. Let's get some of the larger items out of the way for now, and let's talk about the smaller items first because we do have a lot to talk about. So I will have full reviews on every item that you see here, but this video is just going to basically touch on each individual item, how I use it, and how it can be useful. So starting with the smallest power banks that I use, I have 4 individual power banks. Now these are very different. I'm actually going to categorize these this way. We'll do it like that. So this first power bank is from Rav Power. It is a heavy unit. I've had this for many years. It features 3 USB outputs and then 1 USB micro input to charge it. I believe it is 26,000 milliamp hours. Of course I can't tell you because my sticker's covering the specs, but I have had this for years. It works very well. It will charge my Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus fully from 0 probably about 4 or 5 times. Now I've only charged it 3 full charges and there's still battery life left in it. This we'll talk about in just a second though. So that is the first battery pack. The second battery pack that I have is black and orange, and this is kind of a common theme with these battery packs lately, is they keep coming in black and orange. I'm not sure what's up with the color scheme there, but this one is a little bit different. So this does have the information on it. It is 26,800 milliamp hours, so that's quite a large battery. This one does feature wireless charging for a cell phone, so I can place my cell phone on that, click the power button, and it'll start charging my cell phone. It also has a solar panel on the top. It features 2 lights on the bottom as well, so if I hold the power button down, you will see the lights turn on, and then it goes through a few different functions of flashing and SOS and strobe and whatnot. So that's a little handy feature. This particular battery bank has 3 outputs. It has 2 USB and then a USB-C, which is also the in and out. So this one is a little bit more advanced. And then I have one that's very similar to that. This one is 24,000 milliamps. Now this one's from Xdragon. Some of these have the brand on them, some of them don't, but I will put the link in the description for everything that I have here. So this one is a little different. Again, this is 24,000 milliamp hours, as I said. It does have a little bubble compass underneath, so that can be a little handy. For the inputs and outputs, it has 2 USB outputs, and then it has 2 separate inputs, 1 micro USB and 1 USB-C. This one also has a light on the top. Find the power button here. If I hold it, the light comes on again, and then we can go through some of the functions. Pretty standard strobe and SOS, very handy. And then it has a hanging hook underneath, which is really useful. Now I've actually hung this off of trees, off of rocks, and let it sit in the sun to charge up during the day. So that's another one. And then I've got this little guy, which also has a light on the back. If I hold that button in, it will turn on. So this is more of a square frosted light, where this is more of a lens style light for a flashlight. This will help light up an area inside of your tent. Again, a little bit of flash and strobe action there. This one is, again, more advanced because it not only has 1 solar panel, but it also has 3 additional solar panels, meaning this can charge up much quicker than one of these single solar panel battery banks. And these do take quite a while to charge. So if you're out during the daytime, set it up, let it charge, and then you can charge your devices throughout the evening. So I really like this one. And this particular one has 2 outputs for USB and then 1 input for USB micro. So these are the 3 battery banks that I take with me on pretty much every single trip. I'll take 1 if I'm going on a longer trip. I'll take 2 if I really need it to run my camera and all my other flashlights and behind the scenes electronics. Coming back to this one, so I said remember this one. This is a paperweight. Now it is an extremely good battery bank. I really like it. But once the battery's dead, you're still lugging around this heavy battery, whereas these ones, once it's dead, you can simply set it in the sun and charge it up, so you're not really carrying around a dead battery. So that's the difference between this one. I call it kind of a dumb battery, and I call these more of a smart battery, where you can charge them up and keep going with your electronic devices. So those are my 4 small battery banks that I use. let's get these out of the way and let's bring in our first battery unit, our first powered unit. So let's talk about this for a second. Okay, so coming into our first large battery unit, we have a product from PAXCESS. So PAXCESS on the back, and like I said, links will be in the description. This is the smallest power source that I have for a large battery type. Now, this also features a household plug, which is really handy for charging all kinds of devices. My camera batteries, I can plug that in, drone batteries, whatever you guys got, you can plug it in and charge some batteries. So these are a little bit bulkier. These are really for truck camping, car camping, ATV. If you're out doing that sort of stuff, these are very handy. This particular unit, you'll see, has a number of outputs on the front. It also has an LCD screen telling you what output is going out, how long the battery is going to last for, all kinds of useful information. So we have a DC in, so you can charge input, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But down here, you'll see we have some USB options. We then have DC output options. We've got the power button, turn that on, comes up, it is 99% charged right now, and then whatever you plug in, you then have a separate button to turn on that module. So if I want to run USB units out to a USB, let's say I'm charging my cell phone through a USB cable, and I want to turn that module on, I plug in the USB, plug it in my phone, I press the button, and now these plugs right here, this entire module is now live. And the same thing with the AC, you press the AC button up here, that'll make that live, so on and so forth. Press the power button, shut it off. Now, these power units also have 12 volt out, and some of them have 12 volt in for charging them. So this is the first unit that I have. This is the smallest unit that I have as well. And I find it quite useful for packing in the truck, just a real quick out kind of photography trip, or if I'm out sledding, if I'm pulling a pulk sled in the wintertime doing a hot tent trip and I need a small battery, this is very useful. Like I said, the smallest one that I have, so let's move that off to the side. Okay, so coming into the second portable battery station, this one's a little bit different. It is slightly larger than the first one I showed you, both in size and battery size. So that's the smallest, this is the second smallest. Now this one has wireless charging feature on top, so that means I can press the power button on. Again, it's got an LCD screen, and then I can take my cell phone, plant it on top, and ding, we're now charging. So that is extremely handy for me if I'm on the move really quick and I just need to pop my phone on there. I don't want to look for cables and whatnot. Drop it on there, done, charging. When I take it off, that shuts that module down because it's no longer sensing that there's a phone on top of there. And the same thing with this battery unit, I should mention. When you place your phone on top of this and charge it, as soon as you pull your phone off, there's an LED indicator light there. It will turn from red to blue, and that basically tells the battery it's no longer charging, and then after a time period it will automatically shut off, so it's not going to burn the battery life. So very useful. Now this one again has a few different options. It has two outputs for plug. We've got the 12 volt again, and then we've got a different module for 12 volt 8 amp, 24 volt, 3 amp, 12 to 25 volt, whole bunch of different outputs. And then again, we have a light. So this one actually has a light unit on it, which I find incredibly useful. So if I turn it around, the whole back panel is one frosted light. Turning it on, very useful for inside of a tent. Press it again, we've got a flash mode, and then press it again, we've got a different flash mode, and then again for off. So this is pretty handy unit, and all of these units have built-in fans. So you'll notice that there are vents on the side. They do have cooling fans, and they are all kind of programmed for temperature. So if it does get too hot or too cold, a lot of these will automatically shut off going into protection mode. This one has two handles to carry it, very useful, where the PAXCESS only has the one. Not really a big deal. I mean, handle's a handle, right? So that's the second smallest unit. Let's get into the big boys now, because this is where things get really interesting. So we're gonna move these guys off to the side and bring in the two big boys. Okay guys, this is where things get serious. So now we're talking very large batteries, and the price point goes up dramatically. So far we've been looking at some smaller batteries, which are typically priced between $50 to $100 each, depending on the model. And then we were talking about some medium-sized power boxes. So I believe this one's around $300 to $400 Canadian. And the smaller one, I believe this one might be between $250 and $300 Canadian. I'm not totally sure. But the price point on these guys goes up dramatically. So here we have the Nitecore NPS 400. I believe this guy is priced around 700 Canadian dollars. And then here we have the Ecoflow Delta River Pro. So this one is very expensive. This is coming in at almost $1,000 Canadian. So this is about 800 to 1,000, depending on what you get accessory wise, because I do have accessories, which we'll talk about in a second. So these are massive battery banks. Now this one being a Pro version, it has all kinds of different features. It has 3 outlets on the side for your household items. It even has an expansion output, so you can run a separate dummy battery as a storage. So you could charge this and then hook up another battery from Delta, run a cable into there, dump the energy into that battery, disconnect, and then continue charging this. So you'll have a backup battery, which is really cool. Now this one is packed full of features, So here we do have another 12 volt, very, very tight seal, nice waterproof. For an output, we have tons of inputs and outputs all over this thing. Here we have the input. So we do have input from solar or car, and then we have input from household. There's also a reset button. So when it feels that there's a surge power, it will actually pop that as a circuit breaker, and then you press it to reset it. So this thing is packed full of safety features to protect your items, being laptops, tablets, whatever you're charging, whatever you're running. These 2 battery units are strong enough to actually power refrigerators, quite large refrigerators, for a number of days. I find it works really well. I will be doing a in-depth review on these because there's a lot of information to talk about these. But again, we have a power LCD screen. This one has a lot more information, a ton of information. Everything you need to know about the battery, what it's doing, what it's inputting, what it's outputting, will read out there in various different kind of visual aspects. So this one's really, really interesting. It also has a light right here. So the light does turn on. We get a nice solid audible beep to let you know that it's on. Again, brighter. And then we go into the typical strobe and flash and then off. Now the interesting thing with this is you can actually power down the entire battery unit, and then there is a separate on and off switch on the side to go with these 3 outlets. So it's really, really handy that you can actually shut this whole module down and then run this module. And again, this guy has a very large fan to keep it nice and cool. So that's from Ecoflow Delta. Very, very nice. I love that battery. Coming over to this one, I also really enjoy this. This is the Nitecore NPS 400. Again, we've got a ton of outputs on this. Now this one only has the 1 plug, and I find if you're going to be using 3 plugs, you've got a lot of electronics for camping. This I find perfect, 1 output, and then it has a number of USB outputs and a number of auxiliary inputs and whatnot. So this does actually have an accessory. I'll be talking about that in a second, but this one, again, we hold the power button, turn it on, all kinds of information. So right now it's 95% charged, 0 output, 0 input, nothing's plugged into it. And then again, we have the button down here to turn on these modules, to turn off certain modules, to switch from AC on so you can turn your plug on, all kinds of features, and then hold and press, turn it off. Again, very, very nice fans built into it to keep them cool. And this guy is the only one, so this is a plastic body, this is a plastic body, this is the only one that actually has a metal body, which I really like. This is a hefty battery, this is a hefty battery, so these are heavy units, very, very expensive on the price point. So if you're looking for a larger battery to power more, these are going to do it. So let's talk about the accessories for these. Okay, so moving into some accessories, and what I'm talking about with accessories mainly is solar panels. So this is actually a Nitecore product. It goes with this, but it can be used with this, with the other battery bank. It can be used with one of these. It can be used to plug in directly to your cell phone or flashlight. Whatever you want to use it for, it works really well. So on the front we have the power module. It has the cable. This cable type fits directly into the Nitecore charger. You can get adapters if you need to fit other units and whatever else you need to charge. So it's not just for Nitecore. Inside it's a little difficult to see, but there is a power module here, and we have 2 outputs for USB and then 1 USB type C. So we have a couple options there built into it. Let's open up the panel. Keep in mind, it's solar panel. It only works in the sun. So this is kind of location and time of year dependent, really. It is a very large panel. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 panels, Nitecore branding, all kinds of hanging loops on here with some paracord, making it possible to hang it off the side of your truck, in a tree, whatever you need to do. Works very, very well. So this is a nice addition to the power if you're out for multi-days and you really want to draw in some power and yeah, enjoy the outdoors a little bit longer. I believe I folded that wrong. We'll just move it off to the side. So I'll fold that up in a little bit. The other panel that I have is from Xdragon. So this is from the same company as this little guy. They also make solar panels. The same idea with the Nitecore, except the battery module or the electronic module is a little bit more visible. So that's kind of the same idea that's on the Nitecore. It has 2 USB outs. Now this one actually has a parallel option, so you can purchase 2 or 3 of these solar panels and run them in parallel with the provided cable. So you plug that in and then you could double your input from or collection from the sun and plug directly into your devices, or run a cable to plug into a battery unit, making it very useful to harness the sun energy to charge up your devices. Now this solar panel is not quite as large as the Nitecore. It's a 9 panel, still very nice. It still draws in quite a bit of sunlight. Has hanging loops on the sides again, so you can hang it on your truck, your tent, your tree, whatever you got to do, you can do it. This actually works really well with a pulk sled. So if you're pulling a pulk sled in wintertime, you can drape this over top of the sled and plug your devices in underneath of a tarp or whatever, and then pull the sled with you, charge your devices on the go. The same can be said with your truck. If you're driving off-road and you're only driving about 10 or 15 kilometers an hour, strap this to the roof of your truck, the roof of your tonneau, or the top of your tonneau cover, the roof of your Jeep, whatever you got to go with, that'll do the job. So solar panels are very useful. Like I said, I'm going to have to refold that because I did something wrong there. But I have 2 solar panels that I use quite often that work really well. Now let's talk about 2 other options with this giant windmill thing looking kind of device behind me. I'll get some of this stuff pushed out of the way and we'll talk about the Windlily. Okay, so we've talked about battery units, portable, we've talked about large battery units, we've talked about solar panels. That is that end. Now let's talk about water and wind. So here we have a unit from Windlily. This is a Canadian company. This particular unit only works in the water, and then this particular unit next to me works in the water and in the wind. We'll talk about that in a second, but this is basically a water turbine. So you pop this in the river and it spins the blades. It then goes through to this USB power module and you plug in your devices and you've got charging power. These can be used by themselves just with one, or you can actually pair them together as 2. Now I will say, the faster the water current you have this in, the more output you're going to get, and these work tremendously well. It's an excellent source if you're camping near a river, if you're camping near a stream. If you're in a boat, you can actually tow this behind you. They sell a kit to go along with this braided steel cable that's included that you can actually tow behind your boat. It has a little float device, so when you stop it doesn't sink to the bottom. These are really, really interesting. Now I have used this particular unit over probably a year and a half, and I have a couple videos of me using this. One in a stream, when a hot tent camping video I believe, and then another in a hammock camping video. This is really interesting because you don't just charge a battery with it, but you can actually run live power to it. So with the USB output, if you have string lights through USB and you're camping right next to a creek or right next to a river, you can actually toss this in the river, and using the length of the cable and the length of your string lights, then you can plug it in, and the river itself is your on and off switch. So it's pretty neat. You pop this in the river and the lights come on. Just like that, you're running live power, and then as soon as you pull it out of the water, obviously the power cuts off. So that's kind of a fun way to use it. I've used it like that, just kind of messing around. It works really well. It's not too bad of a unit, and like I said, I'll cover more specs in the reviews of all these products, but this is the water only version coming from Windlily, and it's USB. So let's talk about the big brother here, the wind turbine, because this is also wind and water. Okay guys, coming over to the Windlily. Now currently there is a very, very slight breeze. It's not even windy out, and this thing is already taking off on its own, which is actually incredible. The speed that it's going right now is sufficient to charge a headlamp or a flashlight during the daytime. And keep in mind, this is not solar power, so this will charge all day, all night, as long as there's a breeze. It works really well on the ocean, on the side of lakes where it can really collect that wind, But let's say the wind stops and the unit can't turn, but you do have a river or a creek, the blades come off. So there is a little hub system here. This unscrews, all the individual blades come off, and then the mounting bracket can come off as well, turning it back into a water lily. Now, this particular version is in 12 volt, not USB. And I'll talk about that in a second, but I just want to give you guys a quick look at what's going on here. So as you can see, it is the basic water lily turbine system. It has the retaining cables if you want to throw it in a river. It does come with tie outs, so you can kind of get all these out of the way of the blade so it's not going to get caught up in the turbine. And then it goes down to the same unit, except this one is SAE connection instead of USB. And we'll talk about that in just a second because this has a lot of benefits. It is just connected to a metal bracket that is supplied with the Windlily, and I got it on a tripod mount because I always have a tripod with me. Works really well, but you can mount this to all kinds of devices. If you have a special mount on your truck, your roof rack, you could drill and tap in holes, mount that right to it. Perfect unit, put it on a swivel head, works really well. So this is excellent for camping. It's also really great for off-grid. If you have an off-grid cabin and you want to generate some power and harness some power from the water, this will do both really, really well. So let's talk about the SAE cable and why I like it. Okay, so like I was saying, this one is USB output, which is very common for a lot of devices. This current model that I have here is an SAE connector. So this is available in USB as well, but this particular unit that I have is the 12 volt unit. So this is a very, very universal connector, and I really enjoy it because I have a number of different cables right here that are readily available on Amazon for very cheap. I mean, I bought this one here. This is a connector, so it'll connect to this, and then underneath of the cap, which is very difficult to get off, there are two USB outputs, so it is watertight. So I can turn this unit into a USB charger. So I just plug that in there, and now I have two USB ports to charge my cell phone, my headlamp, my flashlight, whatever I need to charge very easily. So that's one possible connection. Another connection is alligator clips. So I can plug that into the unit, and now I've got alligator clips, and this can be really useful to plug to other bulk batteries that might have exposed terminals, ATV batteries, boat batteries, whatever you may need to charge. Of course, it will take some time. As you can see, that thing's just going. Watch out for your fingers with that, I will say, watch out. But that is another option, alligator clips, which are really useful. I then have another cable here. So this is the size that will actually charge some of these battery banks, as well as this cable here. So if you want to plug that into one of these battery units that I have on the table, these are two separate plugs. They just, again, plug right in there, plug into your battery unit, and now you're charging your battery box. And then we have the 12 volt output. So if you have a refrigerator with a 12 volt, or if you have any kind of other items that you need to plug in there, that will plug in there. And these cables are, like I said, they're available on Amazon. You can get these very cheap. I think this cable cost me like $5. The USB might have been like $9. So readily available. So it turns one unit into many different charging units. That's the reason why I like this plug type. Very universal, very helpful. And all in all, I like it. Canadian product, can't go wrong with that. So water lily and the Windlily. Okay guys, so before I move back to the table, I just want to show a quick look at how the blades come off and how small it can be packed away. Very simple. This top disc actually unthreads, so I'm going to tilt it back so they don't fall off. But if I tilt it back like that, lock the tripod, this just unscrews by hand. Very simple. Detaches, take that off, and then all the blades come off. They're very, very durable plastic, so they're not going to crack when they're frozen or whatnot. And they all just come off like that, one at a time. And then you're left with a mounting plate. This guy right here is a mounting plate, and then on the back side there are three individual screws that are easily accessible. I use my multi-tool, and I just use a Phillips head screwdriver to pop that off. And then you're left with the regular yellow blades like you see on the water lily. So a very, very interesting unit. And then you could toss it in the water and harness some water energy with it. Okay guys, so I hope that covered a lot of the electronic devices that I use in the backcountry for charging my camera, my lights, running a fridge, whatever I'm doing, if I'm truck camping or hiking in. So if I'm hiking, I always have a battery bank with me. If I'm truck camping, I'll bring a large battery unit. All kinds of stuff. These are excellent for camping, hunting, fishing, when the power goes out. If you have an off-grid cabin, or maybe you're a digital nomad and you just live off-grid, These guys right here and the Windlily and a solar panel, excellent options for power. So I will have a detailed review on all of these items more towards the summer because it does take a little bit extra time to actually test out electronics. It's different from looking at like a tent and saying, yeah, the seams are good. I can't look inside of these and tell you if they're going to run properly for a prolonged period of time. So far, I've been using them all for quite a long time, especially the Water Lily, over a year. This guy I've been using for about 8 months now. These two are rather new to me, so I'm going to be charging up these all fully and kind of getting them out in the field and testing them in the cold, in the summer, all kinds of different temperatures. So I will have a review on everything eventually, but for now, I'm just going to leave the item links in the description, and if you guys are interested in doing some of your own research, feel free to, because I'm not really a technical guy when it comes to electronics and whatnot. I'm more of a tent kind of guy. So excellent units. If you guys are interested, check that out. But that is all I got. I just wanted to share and answer some of the questions that I've been receiving about how do I power my devices off grid, and this is how I do it so far right now in the beginning of 2021. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.